slowing down. And I live a very hectic life myself. I haven't had a day off in a very long time. And that's okay, I planned it this way. However, I'm a very peaceful human being. It takes a lot for me to lose it. Why? Because I realize I'm going to die. And I want to read the last thing here from the book. We'll take a few questions and then we'll sign some books. You want to play along at home, folks? 193. It's amazing what kind of thoughts race through your mind at 3 a.m. when you're lying in a hospital emergency room in terrible pain. I was afraid that every breath I took could be my last. You can't buy that kind of oxygen. Why couldn't this have happened when I was home, near a hospital I was familiar with? Life doesn't work that way, though. It doesn't conveniently schedule your illnesses and accidents, or even your own death. These things barge in like a drunk uncle, unannounced and unwelcome. I couldn't believe it was happening. Not this way. Not now. I didn't know if I should be crying, screaming, or pleading. What is the protocol for terror? My body felt as if a football-sized bomb had lodged in my lower back and burst in my abdomen. In a matter of minutes, the pressure became so intense that I could no longer sit up. My body grew terribly cold, and I began to shake uncontrollably. I didn't care who saw me shaking. All the ego-driven qualities, like wanting to look cool and be seen as powerful, drained out of me. I was going to die. I knew it. 1 year earlier, when my best friend John announced that he was getting married to his girlfriend Amy, he told me that they wanted me in their wedding. I was flattered. I've never been asked to be a groomsman before, I told him. No, Sean, that's not what we're asking. We want you to perform the wedding ceremony. Wow, I'm so honored. So I went online and got the proper certification, and in October 2007, I flew to San Francisco to unite two souls for eternity. At least, that's what I thought I was going to do. I attended the wedding rehearsal and dinner, and then retired for the evening. As John wheeled me back to my room, I told him that something didn't feel right in my body. I chalked it up to gas pains and went to bed. Like you've never had gas, folks. At around 2:30 a.m., the pain got so intense, I knew I had to go to the hospital. Something was really wrong. I was terrified. Thank God I was not alone. Far from it, my parents, my cousins, and John's dad were right by my side in the emergency room. My mind reacted to the terror by switching over to the sensory recorder mode, taking in all the minute-by-minute details we normally overlook. The faint smell of hand sanitizer, the brightly colored scrubs worn by the nurses working the graveyard shift, the steady hum of the air filtration system. Meanwhile, my pain was growing worse by the second. I began comparing the intensity to past pains I'd experienced. Is this worse than a broken collarbone? It climbed the charts in quite a hurry, quickly surpassing the pain of broken ribs, broken arms, and rapidly approaching the pain of a metal rod being pulled from my leg. Could it really get that bad? Oh God, I hope not. A nurse was trying to get my attention. Mr. Stephenson, I need to ask you a few very important questions. This will only take a minute. She began rattling off a series of, "Are you allergic to?" questions. No, no, no. Then she landed on a question I wasn't expecting. Sir, do you practice any religious denomination? What? I just wanted to be drugged. I wanted to be fixed by a seasoned doctor who had dedicated his entire life purpose to alleviating this kind of pain. I was in, and I was sure, and would assure me that I was going to make it. How is that relevant to what my spiritual practice is? But I was beyond engaging her in conversation. I just barked out Catholic and tried not to scream as she scratched her pen across her notes. She stopped and looked at me. Would you like me to contact the priest, sir? Click. The recorder shut off. My head nodded yes to her question, but I was no longer in the room. The Sean that is speaking to you right now was gone. I had left the building. My senses dulled to a level barely operable, and I went deep inside. The world outside, from which I felt so separated many times in my life, was gone. All I could hear was my internal voice. All I could see were the images in my mind, and all I could feel besides the pain were the tears that streamed down my face. Then gravity seemed to go into reverse. Everything was flipped upside down, and I was no longer lying on the earth. The earth was now right on top of my chest, pushing down on me. One by one, the portals to the outside world began to close. My mind was shutting itself in, boarding up the windows and closing down my senses against the whirlwind it must have sensed was coming. Then everything went numb. Was I dying? But just powering down to a level where my body could reserve all its energy for healing. I didn't know, and I was in too much pain to care. The world became dark, silent, and still. Then, from behind me, a light came on. I was in a movie theater. Of course, movies had been my guilty pleasure my entire life. I'd seen almost every box office hit since I was a little boy. I spent more money on movie theater tickets and video rentals than anyone I had ever met. I always felt safe in a movie theater. I guess my unconscious mind knew that it was to put me there now. I would pay close attention to whatever projected on the screen. And I did. The images on the screen started flashing by one, like a slow-moving slideshow. I saw pictures of everyone I had ever loved in my life, beginning with the nurses who had dubbed me King Tut in the delivery room on the day I entered into this world, all mangled in a heap of excruciating pain. I began praying, right there in the theater of my mind, that I wouldn't have to leave the world in as much discomfort as I had entered into it with. If this was my destiny, I sure didn't feel ready. Then the slideshow began to go by